Welcome to Her Wisdom Collective, a sanctuary for stories, truth, and transformation. I'm Lucy Ibarra. I am your host, and each week I sit down with women and others who are redefining what it means to grow, to heal, to speak up, and to take up space. This is a celebration of the messy, the magical, the bold, and the becoming. Here, no one is too loud, too sensitive, too ambitious, or too much. Because in this collective, your voice is your power, and your wisdom is worth sharing. Hello and welcome to everybody. I am so excited to be here on Her Wisdom Collective podcast. I am super excited for what this journey is bringing, and this is going to be a space where I'm going to bring in incredible women who have stories to share unapologetically about who they are, what life has done for them, and just sharing their truth. So today I am very, very excited to have my beautiful friend Cristal here with me, and she has a very powerful story. I feel like sometimes we hide our truth because of shame, because of guilt, and things that we feel might hold us back, people's opinions. When we own our truth, there is so much beauty to it, and we can help another woman, we can help another man, another individual to also walk in their truth and celebrate who they are and the journey that they've been on to get to this place. So, Cristal, I would love for you to welcome, first and foremost.
Hey,
It's
thank
beautiful
you for
to have
having
you.
me.
Yes, it's such an honor to have you. I would love for you to share a little bit, just introduce yourself, let everybody know who you are and what you are about.
Okay. Hi, everyone. I'm very honored to be here. Thank you for having me. I am Cristal Aguirre, and I share my sobriety journey on all of my social media platforms. I am 42 months sober, so a little bit over,
Beautiful.
not a little bit over, but about 3.5 years, going on 4 years. And I also offer sobriety coaching. And yeah, I stay as authentic and as honest and transparent and raw as I possibly can on all of my platforms for that reason, because I know that the journey in sobriety is that exactly. It's not something that's sunshine and rainbows, right? Like life, it's not at all. So I just keep that in mind always, and to be honest with my audience, because that's really that's who I am as well. So yeah, that's what I do. And
Yes. I have to say, that's one thing that I love about you in what you share on your social media is the authenticity and the transparency. I came from an upbringing where que no se dé cuenta la gente, no digan las, like don't share, don't, I don't want people to find this out. So you're almost conditioned. I mean, granted, you're not putting it out on a billboard,
Right.
but when you share your truth, it's almost this liberation. You're taking your power back from that situation. So with your transparency, I see the comments that you get from other people out there who you're giving hope to. And that's just so beautiful. Obviously, I've shared with you a bit about my sobriety journey, and seeing you at your age, you're younger than me, and to see you celebrate your sobriety and just make it such a beautiful journey, right? Celebration of life. It's an honor to watch. So I definitely appreciate that about you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask you, and I hope that you kind of have an idea. What is your intention for our time together right now? What would you like to set as far as an intention for our audience, for yourself, for what this may bring?
Ooh, beautiful question. Thank you. My intention with anything in life, and this is intentionally every day for me, is to just help somebody. And that I think that just naturally happens, and that's just naturally who I am as well, because I could be somewhere random and a stranger will just start talking to me and start telling me their whole life story, and then we'll start talking about my story, we'll just start talking, and it's I feel like I know that everything happens for a reason, nothing's a coincidence. And so the intention behind today and being here is to continue to do that and to continue to help people and inspire people and motivate them, because that's really what I'm passionate about, is inspiring anybody that I can, with my story, which is why I share so much of it and I share so much of my life, because it's just really important for me to help people. That's always been my goal. And whenever I say this, I would pray, man, like, okay, I just want to help people. And then I realized, right, little did I know that God was literally giving me everything I was asking for by going through all of this stuff I've been through my whole life, because now I'm able to do that. Now I'm able to help people. And so, yeah, that's really the intention, is to be on mission to help people.
I love that.
Really,
I love that you are breathing life into that. I saw you inhale and exhale, and I think that it's definitely being rooted right now. And so with all of that being said, and thank you for sharing all of that, tell us a little bit about where the journey began. What happened? Where were you? What helped you get to this point? Where did it all start?
I started drinking when I was in high school.
Okay.
So I had a group of friends that weren't really friends, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be so bad a part of the cool kids. And I always wanted to fit in. I always wanted to be the cool girl and, all these things. And so I ended up making friends with a group of kids who were not very good people. And then I started to go out with them and party and drink. And actually it was one friend. It was one friend that I had, and everybody I spoke to would tell me, hey, that's not your friend. Like, even teachers, and I'm just like, I don't care what anybody tells me. She's my best friend. And oh my gosh. And I actually, you know what? My mom reminded me recently. We had a conversation. She's like, do you remember about that friend? She stayed at our house for like 2 weeks. I was like, I don't even remember that. She's like, yeah, her mom wasn't around and she stayed at our house. We would feed her. And I was like, oh my gosh, I didn't even remember that. But I do remember she would steal, how Mexican moms, they buy you like gold jewelry,
Yes.
like the seminarios, and la virgencitas.
Yes.
So I had a seminario. That friend that I had would steal my jewelry. She would steal my jewelry and she would wear it. Oh, no. And I never told her anything. I started to realize that, okay, this isn't my friend, right? And so senior year happened. I made friends, other friends, and I started to go out and party. And I tried ecstasy. I tried cocaine. And then I loved it. Oh my gosh. So and it continued, right? I continued those years and partied. Around this time, this was after high school now. Now fast forward after high school, I had also a group of friends that I still met throughout that time. And what ended up happening, I ended up getting jumped by those girls. And that was the beginning of, I want to say, maybe my first awakening, because I went through a very deep depression. I had really so much anxiety. I couldn't even leave the house. And even after that, I realized, okay, maybe these girls did this because I did something, and then that's when I started to, okay, maybe I need to apologize to them. And I did. I had apologized. I was like, hey, like, I'm sorry if I ever did anything to make you guys do this. And like, and like, I continued to party and drink, and I would go on binges for days, and I never knew why around that time, but I knew that I was always getting into trouble. I would do something with my car. I was always driving under the influence. I don't know how. I've never gotten a DUI. Sometimes I don't even remember how I got home, how I got in bed. So many things, right? And fast forward, this is, I want to say maybe 2017, 2018, around that age as well. I was working at an animal hospital. And so I would still go out and party. I would show up to work hungover. And in 2019, I started to drink at work. I was drinking at work. And I was doing cocaine at work to keep me awake. I was working overnights.
Now we see the insanity part of it because we're sitting here. But back then, it made perfect sense.
Yes.
You know, so that's part of obviously being in the addiction.
Yes.
And share with me, obviously you were there at that hospital, and where in that timeline where do you feel like, if you could name the first moment when you realized this has got to stop?
Yeah, I was dating somebody around that time, and this guy is the first one that kind of brought it to my attention, where he's like, it's not normal the way you drink. And he would tell me the things I would do when I was drinking. And he would say that I would get really angry. I would do unhinged, impulsive things. And there was one night where I think we were out somewhere, I don't know what, and I blacked out. And the only thing I remember was like hitting the door with my hand. And all of a sudden he had me pinned, like choking me in the center console. And he was choking me and he's just telling me, is this what you wanted? Is this what you wanted? And I just could not believe that was happening. And that kind of just brought me back, right? And then he took me home and I was just like hysterical, right? Crying. I was banging on the doors. I was still living with my parents at the time. And my dad comes out and I was just like, he choked me, and just like being dramatic, right? And I don't know. My mom actually recently told me this. I didn't know that, but I guess he told my dad that I was out of control and he couldn't control me. And that's just that's his first instinct was to choke me, right? Oh my gosh. That was when I realized after him I was like, okay, I have a problem here, because he was the man I would date. They were just not good people. And after I broke up with him, so I left there, and then I started to work at a gym, and then COVID happened. And then that's when everything went downhill. My parents moved all the way out to the desert, and I moved with a friend of mine. I didn't want to leave the area because my life was out here, right? So I told her, I said, I'm not going to go with you guys. I'm going to move in with my friend. And I moved in. I brought my cat with me, and I moved in with my friend. And that's kind of where, that was the first time I've ever been alone. I wasn't necessarily physically alone, but alone in every other aspect.
Freedom.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I went off the rails. I started to drink every day, and I was just doing it for fun. I thought I was having fun. Like, yeah, this is so cool. I get to drink whenever I want now. No one's going to tell me anything.
Isn't that funny how that works?
Yeah.
As far as when, growing up in a Latino household, it sounds like we grew up very, very similar from what we've talked about. And it's funny how that happens, that you feel like, my parents aren't letting me breathe. They're not letting me be my own person. Us not understanding, obviously, right? We're still under their watchful eye. We're still, there's a fine line, obviously, between being very restricted or also feeling safe. But then it's funny because we prove our parents right by going out there and doing the things that they're saying are probably going to happen. So it does make it a little bit easier for us to, like you said, just go on a tangent with, living life in a different, crazy way. So, okay, so you're there now. You're with your roommate. I've heard you talk a little bit about your Mexico experience. Can you share a little bit about that?
Okay, so this was, fast forward, this was in 2021, January of 2021. And I'm from South Central LA. And most of my family on my dad's side still lives there. And I've always, again, it's just always this wanting to be a part of something, right? And I just wanted to be a part of my family. I wanted to be so close to them. And even though I lived so far, right? And at that time, I was really close to one of my cousins, my younger cousins. And I would take her out with me when I would go party because she wanted to experience it, right? And I said, well, okay, well, if you're going to go out, you're coming out with me.
Yeah.
So I keep an eye on you. So I brought her out with me, and I would bring her. She wouldn't have to worry about anything. I'd pay for everything, and she'd have a great time. And so this one day, she called me, or she FaceTimed me, and she showed that she was with all my cousins. And I was just so sad. I was like, and then I started getting mad. I was like, why didn't they tell me that they're all out there? And so I was drinking. I grabbed my keys. I was in sweats, a t-shirt, and I drove all the way to Ensenada by myself. I was drinking the whole way there, made it out there, I don't know how. And I got there, and my family was like, what is she doing here, you know? And because I just showed up. They didn't invite me. I just went over there. And so then we all went out. So that night, I guess I was being crazy, and I was arguing a lot with my cousin's girlfriend, and I wanted to leave. And then I just got mad at everybody. And so they were hiding my passport, and finally they decided to give me my passport because I was just, throwing a tantrum. And they gave me my passport, and I left. And I was looking in the rearview mirror because I saw a cop. And because I was looking at the rearview mirror, I ran a red light, and then I ended up getting pulled over in Ensenada at 3 a.m, girl. So I started to bawl. I was like, oh my God, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. This is where I die. They're going to kidnap me. They're going to do something. They're going to kill me.
And all under the influence. You're under the influence.
Yes, I was drunk. Oh my goodness. They pulled me over, and the cops come and approach my window, and they're like, oh, did you know you ran a red light? I was just like, yeah, I'm so sorry. And I was just crying, and he's just like, can you step out of the vehicle? And I was like, okay. So I stepped out of the vehicle, and this is all in Spanish, right? So, and they're like, do you have your driver's license? I said, no, I don't. And I said, I just have my passport. And he's like, okay, well, let me see your passport. And then I gave it to him, and I'm still crying. And then he asks me, he's like, why are you crying? I was like, because I don't want to die. I told him. And he's just like, you're not going to die. It's okay. You're not going to die. And he's like, have you been drinking? I said, yeah. He's like, why are you driving like this? And I said, I got into a big fight with my family, and I just wanted to leave. And the other cop had said, is it okay if we look through your car? I said, go ahead. And so he's looking through my car, and this cop was just like, did your family do anything to you? I said, no. And he's like, okay, well, why would you leave like that? Why would you leave drunk? I said, because I was mad. We were fighting, and I left. And he's like, okay, well, I'm going to give you a chance to call your cousins to come get you then. And I called every single one of them, and nobody answered my call. And I just started to cry even more because I was like, no fucking way, dude. Like, what if something really was happening to me? What if something did happen to me and I called them and they didn't answer?
Yeah.
And oh my gosh. And at this point, the cop even felt bad for me because he's like, okay, well, we tried to call them and they're not answering your phone. And he asked me again. He's like, are you sure they didn't do anything to you? I said, I'm sure they didn't do anything. And he's just like, okay. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to have to take you because, well, if no one's going to come get you, we're not going to leave you here. Right. And I was just like, and he's like, yeah. And then it was the weekend. He's like, you're going to stay in jail all weekend. I was just like, oh, fuck. Just crying, just going crazy, right? Crying. And so the cop gets in my car. I get in the car. And again, I start crying. I was like, okay, they're for sure going to do something to me here. And they didn't. They drove my car to the station. They parked it. And they said, we're going to come back in the morning. And I was just like, okay. They took my keys and they left me in the car there. And the whole time I'm just crying and just thinking like, my cousins, I can't believe that they did this. Like, I can't believe they didn't answer any of my calls, nothing. The cops came back in the morning and it was like 6. And they asked me again, did their cousins do anything to you? I said, no. And they were like, okay, well, we're going to let you go.
Wow.
And one of the cops was like, I need you to take my number just in case you have problems crossing the border. And I said, okay. And I got his number. This man checked on me like 4 times on the way home.
Oh.
And just to make sure I was okay, like the whole ride home, I was like pulling over, having to throw up. And oh my gosh, it was horrible.
A mess. You know, we talk so much about, within our community of women, we talk so much about finding the gold in these moments, right?
Mm-hmm.
And in that moment, I'm sure you just kept thinking, why me? Just my luck. Oh my goodness, like this happens to me, right? And hindsight, even hearing the story, what gold did you find in this? What do you feel about the situation now, hindsight?
That I realized then that I'm being taken care of, that somebody is taking care of me, because I don't know to this day how I got so lucky to have 2 wholesome, good, genuine cops in Ensenada, which is extremely rare, that took care of me and made sure I made it home safely, more than my own family, strangers, right? And I don't know how, man. And even after that, I grieved. I was really sad. I was heartbroken that I had that type of betrayal from my own family, right? And then also accepting the fact that I put myself in that position. That's the gold there. I decided to go over there when no one invited me. No one told me to go over there. I went over there.
Right.
And so that's what I continued to realize, that I was doing this shit to myself. I was doing all of these things to myself. Nobody was telling me to do anything. Nobody was telling me to drink. Nobody was telling me to get behind the wheel and go do something. It was all me. So that's the gold, man. That's really that I discovered with that experience. And that wasn't even the last experience I had before I really got sober, because that happened in January of 2021. And it wasn't until November of that same year that I ended up getting into a car accident, and then losing my car, right? Losing my car. Then the guy I was dating then decided to take me to church. And then in March is when I decided to get sober for Lent. But that's how long it took me to actually do it. I tried in between to get sober. I tried to stop, and then I would be like, no, maybe I could just have a couple of drinks, and I convinced myself that I could try.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, let's talk
no.
about that. Let's talk about that part of it. I don't think that we realize the grief that comes with, there's grief in it, right? We grow up in a culture where, and I've talked about this plenty of times, we grew up in a culture where the baby's birthday party, they're turning 1, the baptism, the guests of honor can't drink. But there's alcohol everywhere, right? It's just celebratory, right? We celebrate with alcohol. So it's a normal thing for us. We don't talk about those situations that can arise from the alcohol, right? And by no means, my parents they didn't set that example for us. That was not the thing. But with all of that being said, so you grow up, you become an adult, and, depending on the business you're in, depending on the friends you have, you're going to be confronted with alcohol. And it's, a lot of people can just go out and have one drink and they're fine, right? There's that moment where I know you went through it and I went through it, where you think to yourself, like, that's it. I'm done. I'm not drinking anymore. It's not for me. It doesn't serve me. And there's that process where you say, like, I'm gonna do 1 drink. I'm gonna do 2 drinks. Like, as long as I'm at 2 drinks, 2 glasses of wine with dinner, like, we try it all, right?
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
I mean, you know this feeling.
Yes.
And then one day you realize, like, I'm not good with this. I'm not cut out to do this. I drink for sport, right?
Yes.
Almost. So, granted, I know that we use it as coping mechanisms to grieve other losses, to cope with life. What was it like for you to sit with it? Did you sit with it and really mourn the idea of, I can't believe I'm not going to have another drink again? Like, I think when people out there, I pose the question to friends and other people when I'm sitting with them at times, and they say like, no, like I can't not have a drink.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, right now I'm doing 75 hard. I'm on day 8 today. And when I talked to a couple people about doing it, they were like, yeah, I could do the 2 workouts. I could do the reading. Oh no, I gotta, no alcohol. No, I can't. I'm out.
Yeah.
That piece, right? So where were you at with the grief part of it? Where were you when you realized, did you go through that morning process of thinking you weren't going to drink anymore?
Oh yeah. I realized that is still something I grieve to today. And there's different aspects to the grief in the journey, because in the beginning, I didn't have so much grief for the alcohol. It was more of grief of the life I was leaving. The leaving of that old life was the grief, where I was like, okay, now I go out and am I gonna have fun? What the fuck am I gonna do with myself now when I go out? And that thing was very intense for me, because I didn't know how to talk to people. I didn't know how to connect with people on a genuine, wholehearted level. It was always with alcohol. Okay, I'm just gonna drink because I need this anxiety to calm down when I'm out, right? Or I need to drink to feel like myself, and that's what I would tell myself. And I would drink, and then I would be crazy. I would be aggressive. I would be all these other pent up emotions that I was holding inside would come out when I was drinking. But then, right, that was the first aspect of the grief. And there's always levels in between that, because I feel like at the beginning, I was just such a different person. I'm a completely different person than I was when I first got sober now. I feel like I've lived like 10 lifetimes in the last 4 years that I've, been sober. And those deaths of the old versions of myself were necessary for me to be where I'm at now. And I love who I am right now. And I know that I can't hang on to her either, because I'm going to continue to evolve and grow. And oh man, so that grief is forever going right now. And then even relationships that I've had when I was drinking and in addiction, and friendships, and those people are no longer in my life now. And now it's just my family and a very small group of friends that I've had for a long time, or newer friends, but people who do align more with who I'm becoming, right? And that was also a learning process. So that was also a grieving process. And that's something that I've still been grieving recently. So the grief is just there still. Yeah. So I don't know when that's going to go away, but I do give it space.
Yes.
I do give it space, and I honor the sadness, the grief, and because I don't want to hang on to that. I want to release it. I want that to move through me and go away.
It's important. It's important to give that its space as well. Yes. And I'll ask you, when it comes to the work that you've done, we won't go too deep into it, but where do you feel that you've done the most significant amount of work? What do you feel is the one thing? There's many things, but what do you feel is the top thing that has allowed you to really get to this point of being at peace and living the beautiful life in the mountains that you're living, of being okay with being by yourself and in solitude? And what do you feel has been the biggest piece of work with that?
I would say my biggest was everything that was inside. So if we want to put a label on it, I would say shadow work, right? So really looking at everything that would come up for me, all the triggers and everything that would, okay, why am I feeling like this right now? Right? And then not so much put pressure on myself to try and figure it out, because I also did that. It was more so just kind of putting that feminine aspect to it, where it's like, okay, I'm feeling this. I don't know why yet. and you kind of just let the feeling be, and then you get the answer hours later, a day later, 2 days later, but you're not putting pressure on the feeling to try to figure out the answer. And for me, it was definitely that. I dove head first into my healing journey, right? And then at some point too, that also became somewhat of addiction for me, to heal and find the answer. And why am I feeling like this, I have to figure it out. And oh my goodness. And I did that for about a year and a half.
Yeah.
I really did. I did some really, really solid work on myself, very deep work. And I'm grateful that I did that, because it did change my life. It completely changed my life. And now, you know, living on the mountain by myself, and it was exciting at first, right? And the honeymoon phase of the mountain, it was fun. And then I went through the really tough part of it, where I was like, yo, I'm by myself up here.
Yeah. The darkness.
And that's where the testing of my own trust with myself really came out, because when I would go through really tough emotions, or I would go through something, I'm like, holy crap, dude, there's nobody up here. I can't call somebody just to come up, you know, and holy moly, like, even just thinking about it now, I'm just like, wow, dude, like, you could literally go in any direction when you're by yourself. No one's there to check on you. No one's there to tell you to get up. There's no one else there setting an example for you. It's just you.
Showing up in your own authenticity.
Yes.
You decide if you're going to show up in your own authenticity or not.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
And I'm not going to lie, I've thought about, like, what if I end up drinking? And I've asked myself these things in a way where I'm like, where I'm not in the seat of my body, where I'm just like, well, what if something happens and I just go off the rails and I go get something, and then I would have to, like, no, we're fine. We're good. It's okay. And I remember too, when I moved up there was a bottle of wine in the fridge, because it's my sister's cabin. And it sat there for weeks. I think maybe even 2 months. And I would see it every day. And it was a test for me. I'm so bad. Sometimes I torture myself that way. I test myself like that. And I would see it and I'm like, wow, like, that's just there. I could just do this anytime if I wanted to.
Yeah.
And I just never did. And I finally threw the bottle away. It's not there anymore, you know, and I finally started to make the place my place. And oh my gosh. Yeah. So being by yourself, it's an absolute test.
Right, right.
And it is every day still for me, because and being up there has let me explore and learn my own energy and be in that energy and fall in love with my own energy. And it's given me one of the biggest breakthroughs I've ever had in my whole life. And I also want to mention that that's also because of Annabelle. And she's oh my gosh, I cannot. I don't know, if I did not have Annabelle as my mentor being up there, I would probably lose my mind. I probably would have already gone off the rails. There's no way. And I say that with every ounce of my being. I'm like getting chills all over my body by saying that, because she's gotten me through some of the toughest crap that I've had to look at myself. And I realized that too when I did dive into my healing journey. It was never getting to the root of the problem. And now that I have Annabelle, oh my gosh.
Oh, she's going to take you there.
Oh my gosh.
She's going to take you there.
The breakthrough that I had, I ended up realizing that, yes, I had the addiction to the alcohol, but that was just the mask for the deeper problem. And for me, it was always the external validation. Remember, I mentioned earlier, I said, I always just wanted to fit in. I always just wanted to be accepted. That was the real addiction. And the addiction of running away from the pain of constantly being rejected or putting myself in these situations where I was rejected because those were not my places to be in.
Right.
And that was the real addiction. And the alcohol was just,
Yeah.
oh my God.
Yeah. No. And you know, even with that, I think it's important to mention that when we are on our sobriety journey,
Yeah.
it is so important the people that you are surrounded by, because granted, you're going to be surrounded by some people that are not going to be okay with you being sober, but that's okay, because I feel like that's when God makes that decision of removing those people from your life. I feel like that's when the universe says, hey, they got to go. And sometimes we can't make that decision. So we have to listen. I think when you're sober and you really have the intention of getting yourself to a healthy point, you have clarity and you can listen, and the connection to yourself and to God is so much more clear.
Yeah.
So having those people there that are going to allow you to fine tune that connection and be very honest with you on what you need to do is so important. Like you, Annabelle has been obviously a huge, huge part of the sobriety journey for me. And it is really important. So I'm glad that you obviously see that as well, the awareness that we have of who we surround ourselves with. So I think we're gonna close it out. But before we do, I wanted to ask you, for somebody who is out there maybe struggling with addiction, walking this path as well, and they might be just recognizing it, they may have known for a while. What do you think, what would be your piece of advice as far as for them to really own that truth, to step into that truth and be honest with themselves? What would you suggest is a step for them to take as far as processing that?
I would first say to be kind to yourself. There is nothing wrong with you, okay? This is just a part of the chapter, right? Or a chapter in a book. This isn't your whole life. And I would also say to find what works for you, because there's so many things out there now that you can try to get help. There's resources, look into it, especially if you have a job. That's something that I didn't realize until after I got sober, that I could have gone to my employer at the time and told them that I had an alcohol problem, because legally they're supposed to help you or help you find help for yourself, and you still get to keep your job. And that's something I didn't know. So please do research. That's definitely something I would suggest. And like I said, figure out what works for you. Try different things. If one thing doesn't work, try something else. Do not give up. I'm excited to say and happy to say that now, because of my experience, I do offer coaching for that. And everybody's different, very unique, right? And so it's just figuring out what works for you. And support system. The people who you surround yourself with, make sure you have a really solid support system, because that's going to be extremely important for you. So
yeah, and adding to that, I definitely feel that there are so many resources out there for you, whether it is AA, whether it is Al-Anon, whether it is church, whether it's your faith, whether it is your community, your family, and really, really important that you lean into that, because the people that want you to succeed in your sobriety are going to stand firm with you. And those that don't want you to succeed in that, you'll notice it, but you have to be clear and be able to listen to that inner voice that's telling you, that inner knowing that's telling you that this doesn't serve you, whether it's the people, whether it's the community, getting yourself out of a certain environment like you did with work, with your job, with your employer. So just listen to that intuition. That inner knowing is going to guide you. Obviously, I feel that prayer is huge. I feel that meditation. I feel that there's so many options out there for you. And since I've been sober, and I'm sure you can also say this yourself, I feel like the connection with God and the clarity that I have, the connection with myself, listening to myself and my intuition, I am not going to lead myself down the wrong path.
Yeah.
So I hope that you found some sort of relief, comfort in this conversation, and that you also will learn a little something from Cristal. Cristal, thank you so much for being here.
You.
And I'm very, very grateful and honored to have you here. And I hope we bless many people with our conversation. So thank you for tuning in to Her Wisdom Collective. I'm very excited to have you here and grateful as well. Thank you for joining me on today's episode. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe and share. Stay tuned for future Her Wisdom Collective episodes and for future Her Wisdom Collective events. Thank you so much. I appreciate your support and look forward to the next one.